I mean, you said absorption report. I think, yeah, the three of us all know, but can you kind of communicate it to the listener who's looking to buy
Yeah.
and what that translates? And also, where is it trending? Like, is it just cyclical through the seasons in Kelowna? Or, are we kind of at a trend where the absorption rate is now into a buyer's market, across the board or just on high end luxury?
Yeah, I had some friends many years ago and they moved down to the US, really smart people, and they always bought and sold in the fall. And they said, we don't like to compete with other people. So we do our real estate in the fall where the selection's a little bit less, but then there's also less buyers. And so I remember buying and selling for them in the fall. And they were really cool to work with because they were kind of like, well, we're going to list our house. If we don't get any offers right away, we got to drop our price because we want to get it done before it snows. So they were very realistic about the sales process, and they were very realistic about how when they went to purchase, having their house already sold was a big deal. That was one of the seasonal trends that they knew. But when we're looking at absorption rates are very interesting because they don't tell the whole story, but you have to really know what they are. And they're expressed generally in two different ways. In the past, we never expressed absorption rates in percentages. But in the last few years, people have been using, throwing out percentages. And so the absorption rate is basically how much of the inventory that's in place right now. Let's just say there's 400 listings on the market. In the last 30 days, how many houses have sold, and there's 400 listings on the market. And we project that 30 days forward. And so let's say there was 40 sales in the last 30 days. We would say that the absorption rate is 10%. Right? So there's 400 listings on the market and then 40 sold. So that would be a 10% absorption rate. But the more accurate way to say it is how many months of inventory are there? Because if you look at it seasonalization, for example, August might be 40 sales, but September traditionally with that many listings might be 50 sales, and October might be 55, and then November might be 35. So when we look at it, months of absorption, that's also considered absorption rate. And typically months of inventory is what I look at. So for example, if we go back to the pool scenario, there's 372 houses with pools for sale in September in the Okanagan. Now, we also know that by October 15th, 372 of those pools will be winterized. Well, I just said that from January till now, 266 homes sold with pools. So right now, with 372, we have well over a year's worth of inventory if suddenly pools started to sell. But the reality is we're not going to sell 40 houses with pools in September and October. It's not going to happen. I mean, the highest month was July, which was 46 sold, right, of those 266. So there's probably a year and a half worth of pools on the market right now.
Wow.
But when I told you guys 266 families spent millions of dollars on pools before, that sounded really exciting. But now when I say there's more than a year and a half supply of pools on the market right now, you're like, oh, wow.
Well, yeah. So if you're the seller and you hear this, you're thinking, okay, if I want to sell this in the next month, I need a huge price reduction.
Not so much. What you have to look at is what is the activity on your listing? Does the activity show that it's going to sell or not? Because that's something that we have to show them as a realtor. There's a lot of activity that we have access to on the internet that can pretty much tell people, hey, you've got the right activity to sell. And your agent with experience can help you with that. But in some markets, you might drop the price an awful lot and still not get an offer because there just might not be the absorption to absorb your inventory. But at the end of the day, it always is price. I mean, a good price is always going to help, but I wouldn't be pulling the good price out of my pocket in September. I would have been doing that in June, right? Like sort of like now that's that seasonalization part. If it was me, I would probably wouldn't list my house for sale in September if I had a pool. If I had a very competitive house, I would probably, take really nice photos next week and get it all looking really nice in the moonlight and everything else. And I'd probably relist in January, February.
Yeah.
Now, risk of that would be if the market picks up, I might sell my house in a hot market, but then I also might be buying in a hot market too, right? So
yeah. When market's going down, you want to sell, then wait, then buy. But when market's going up, you kind of want to buy first and then wait to sell.
You want to time the market, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
The one thing I would do is I'd say, okay, what's my budget for a pool? What's my budget for a house? And ask myself, if I look at that house right now, could I rebuild that house for cost? So could I buy the lot? Could I build the house? And right now, almost every house that's out there on the market, you can probably, if it's a resale house, you're going to get that house significantly less expensive than you would if you had to build it right now.
Yes.
So on a resale perspective, most houses are really good values. Most houses are selling under their assessed value. That really doesn't mean a lot in the grand scheme of life. But I look at it, what would it cost to replace that house? in many situations, there's a lot of really good houses that you could buy for much less than you could ever pay to build them.
Yeah. And it is funny, we don't use that approach for residential appraisals generally, right? It's what the comparables are and what's selling. That's the funny place we're in right now in the market, is like a house that's 10 years old, you're never going to replace it for the cost that, you could build it for. So,
right. And there are times when it makes sense to build. And, a number of years ago, realtor and I were sitting down and I said, would you build right now? And he was very experienced broker, and he just started laughing. He goes, oh, don't be stupid. And I went, oh, okay. And shook my head, and I kind of got my head around it and went, oh yeah, wait a minute. I can go buy that used house, which is 5 years old, and I can put a pool in it. But if I build a house, I'm going to be underwater the minute I move in. And, probably the last time
Nice pool pun.
Probably like right now, literally, you got that right.